I got this theory or this idea, right? What if you read the Bible as if you were a IT help desk or you work with computers or something like that, even though you never have, right? Let's just, for sake of argument, say you did. Take this walk with me. I'm in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, and it's talking about the mind of Christ. And if you are reading it the very first time, it may seem like a foreign concept. Let me read it, and then I'm going to get to this idea I have. We're in 1 Corinthians chapter 2. We'll start at verse 12. Now we have not received the spirit of the world, but the Spirit of God, so that we might understand the things God has so freely given us. These are the things we are talking about when we avoid the manner of speaking that human wisdom would dictate and instead use as a manner of speaking taught by the Spirit, by which we explain things of the Spirit to people who have the Spirit. Now the natural man does not receive things from the Spirit of God. To him they are nonsense. Moreover, he is unable to grasp them, because they are evaluated through the Spirit. But the person who has the Spirit can evaluate everything, while no one is in position to evaluate him. For who has known the mind of Adonai? Who will counsel him? The very last verse I read was verse 16, and it references to Isaiah chapter 40. Isaiah chapter 40 is referring to God's, essentially the ultimate mind, the ultimate creation. It is talking about how no one can tell you God's thoughts. No one can tell you who was there before God. He has always been, right? Let's unpack this as if we're talking about a computer. In order for a computer to be effective, there has to be what? A designer. Someone who understands the inner workings, both inside and out, knows the dimensions, knows what type of ROM, what type of SSDR, all this fancy stuff, right? I say that because I just got a computer, rock with me. But I did work IT while I was in the military. Now we're talking about the ultimate creator. And in order for something to work efficiently, certain things have certain roles. The motherboard has a role to do XYZ. This software program has to do this. This piece detects this. This sends information over here. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a role. And if you are moving outside of that role, you're never going to be effective. This is kind of where free will kind of comes in, right? If a hammer, I'm a veer off because if you have a hammer was designed to drive nails into a different material, right? Typically wood. But if the hammer was given free will and decided, you know what? I don't want to do what I was designed to do. I want to paint. I want to be the instrument that receives the paint and then puts it on the wall. Could the hammer technically try to do that? Sure. Is it going to be the most effective? Probably not. But why? Even though the hammer has put in its heart that this is what it wants to do, I want to be like a paintbrush. I want to do everything that a paintbrush can do. That is my sole purpose. But for some reason, it is never as effective as an actual paintbrush. It would almost seem as if it's moving or acting out of its design. You can try it, but you will never be to your full capacity, or you'll never be fulfilled, or you'll never feel a sense of purpose. No matter how much you try, and it'll never be enough paint for you to put on the wall, essentially, right? Now I'm using that example to go back to the computer thing, because not everybody's a computer person. Now, understanding that a computer is now the focal point of creation, we understand that there was a creator, and the creator has given every particle, everything a role. The creator knows when something is out of place, it knows how to troubleshoot. Troubleshoot is essentially just saying, hey, I need to find out why things aren't working the way they're supposed to work. In some instances, like an IT job, the first thing they ask you is, hey, are you plugged into your power source? Then they might ask you, hey, are you connected to the internet? Are you connected to the printer? Are you XYZ? They go through a list of things to make sure that, hey, if these things are in line, then we know what it cannot be. God, being the ultimate troubleshooter, is going to know where everything is because he knows how it was designed to be. This is how I started to understand the whole concept of the mind of Christ. When you create a computer, you can then make another one, and you can even create an instruction manual on how this machine is supposed to operate. So where anybody can then read it and understand, in order for this machine to fully operate how it's supposed to, it has to follow these steps. In this instance, think of it like the Bible, right? God has made all of these computers. He has said, hey, in order for the computer to run most efficiently, it has to do XYZ. Think of the Spirit as the manual as well. You have the Bible and the Spirit. They work hand in hand, right? In more modern terms, we have essentially two ways of thinking. You have the way that God has designed us to think, and then we have what we would consider human knowledge. I'll give you an example. Human knowledge would tell you that in dating, you have to lay with a woman before you can marry her to see if you're going to be sexually compatible, and vice versa. So you have to lay with a man before you can see if they're sexually compatible for the marriage. They are thinking with just the flesh part. A marriage is more than sex. It is very important. It is not the only. If you are leading with that, if the sex is amazing, but everything else falls apart. The sex can be amazing, but everything else is in shambles. Now, we as humans know a lot of relationships have gone past their expiration date because of amazing sex. What the Bible would tell you is, do we really think that the all-knowing, all righteous, all justice, all eternal Father would want to have two people come together and they are compatible in their finances, their spiritual life, child raising, just every other aspect, and then say, oh hey, but the sex, nah, y'all gonna struggle in that. I don't want y'all to be compatible there. That doesn't seem logical. What the world will tell you is multiple partners to learn how to do this right and then get married. But they don't talk about the extra baggage that comes with multiple partners. They don't show you the statistics of the more people you sleep with, the less likely you are to stay married. Sex is more than just physical. There's a spiritual element to it as well. This is a personal opinion. I think that we teach to sleep with more people to get better at sex because we are afraid of rejection. We are afraid to learn somebody, or maybe just a patient, or there's a fear of true intimacy, of learning your partner. And when it comes to being vulnerable, sometimes you're opening yourself up to be hurt. It's very easy I'll just use me, I don't want to use other people. It would be very easy for me to be with 50, 60 women and then say, oh, I got it figured out. I know how this woman will like it. And that may not be the case. Maybe there is a good enough physical cadence and rhythm, but I never truly learned what my partner likes because she is not all of those people I've been with. Those women all have their own journeys and walks and they had their own spiritual essence. And I might have met them at a time when they were broken. And I probably lay with them at a time when they were going through something that they didn't know any better. So they were just shielding off the true them just for a fix. There's so many elements to that of what man teaches. There's so many other examples of that. But just saying that to say, there's man's wisdom and then there's spiritual wisdom. Let's just look at this text one more time. Verse 14 says, now the natural man does not receive the things from the Spirit of God. To him they are nonsense. Moreover, he is unable to grasp them because they are evaluated through the Spirit. But the person, this is verse 15, but the person who has the Spirit can evaluate everything, while no one is in a position to evaluate him. Talking about the human wisdom aspect again. The natural man, which is just the man that relies on his own understanding, tries to avoid, maybe intentionally or unintentionally avoids God's reason. They will read things in the Bible and say that it's silly, it's nonsense. And think of it, just to your natural being, of course, it all sounds like nonsense. To have someone talk to you crazy and not retaliate and want to fight, naturally, that doesn't make sense to not want to. And that kind of goes to the point. He's unable to grasp these things because they've been evaluated through the Spirit, meaning they have been tried, they have been reviewed, they have been appraised. But the person who has the Spirit can evaluate everything. Now, this next verse is what is referring back to Isaiah chapter 40. For who has known the mind of Adonai? Who can counsel him? If I had to wrap it up, I would say this. Essentially, God is the ultimate mind, the ultimate knower of the computer. So if the ultimate mind and knower of the computer then gives you the instruction manual and the Spirit to understand how you are to fully function and operate, who is anyone else to tell you that that's not the right way? The mind of Christ is saying, think of Christ in this manner. He walked this earth. He told people that thought they were teaching the right way. I am the way, the truth, and the light. No one comes to the Father but through me. The teachers of that time, Pharisees, Sadducees, Talmud teachers, rabbis, many of them called him heretic, blasphemer, called him Satan, descendant of Satan, all these things. In our natural, it'd be understood if Christ were to clap back, if he were to talk to these people crazy, if he were to prove himself by doing another miracle. In our natural, that makes sense. But he didn't. Many times he just said, you don't understand the scriptures. He was so confident in what he knew and his purpose and what his functions were. He just told people, you don't know the scriptures. I don't have to prove anything because I know the truth. I can prove the truth, but if you're not in a place to hear it, then that's on you. But I don't need you to know who I am for me to know who I am. And I think that's so powerful. When we think about it in life, many of us are trying to convince others of what we say we believe in order to make ourselves believe it. And I know it's easy to use some real quick examples as the transgender issue today, the homosexual and the lesbian issues today. But there's so many other instances where the mind of Christ can be implemented, right? Think of the kid that gets bullied at school. Or think of the person that is afraid to share their faith. The person who's afraid to ask for a raise or a promotion. The person who's afraid to confront a family member about something that happened in the past. There are so many people with so many instances where they're not moving in the sense that they have the mind of Christ, where they know the Creator, where they know what they're put on this earth to do, where they know what's right and what's wrong. Maybe they just don't know the true power of the source, which brings this all back to an identity crisis. You don't know who you are. You don't know what your purpose is. You don't know who you're to become or who you're to serve or who you're to help, and all these things you just don't know. You try all these avenues and still come up with nothing. And I know it's very cliche to say, try God. It's very cliche because it doesn't break down a lot of what's being said. Going to the source is you internally telling yourself, I am not going to lean on my own understanding. I want to lean on what I was put on this earth for. Most people would agree nothing doesn't just magically turn to something without something first existing, meaning essentially a creator. You can't create something without a creator. I truly believe that that is an issue for most people. We're having an identity crisis. Too many people are ending their lives. Too many people are hurting other people in many other instances because they are hurting themselves or they are lost themselves. I just want to encourage anyone watching this to remember you can always go back to the creator. But before you do, make sure your heart is in the right place. All right, that's it. That's all for now, for what it's worth.